Hello, Shamai. My name is Sarah Featherstone and I'm an artist and writer. I trained as a nurse in Cardiff in the 90s and I worked in Rookwood and the Heath Hospital and later as a district nurse in Ceredigion. Now I facilitate creative wellbeing sessions in the community, combining printmaking, painting and creative writing. I'd like to share with you how to make photo stories, a great way to develop your creative eye and a practice that can easily become part of your daily routine. You'll quickly build up an interesting series of work that can be shared with friends and family. Photo stories are ideal for uploading to your Facebook or Instagram account if you have one, or if not, they're wonderful mementos of something that's inspired you, both as an image and through a deeper consideration of it to create your poem or prose. During lockdown, on my daily walks, I began taking lots of photos on my phone of things in my local environment that I hadn't noticed before. It helped to take my mind off anxious or repetitive thoughts and bring my attention into the moment. Because I had more time to observe, I became more curious, slowing down to look at details that I would have missed before. Gradually, I built up a collection of interesting images from my walks that I realised were perfect prompts for writing little stories or poems. I began to set myself the challenge to write an accompanying poem for my favourite photos using the Japanese haiku format of 3 lines. Then I would add the poem to my image in a text box and upload it to my blog or Instagram account as a record of my days. All you need to begin making your photo stories is a phone that you can take photos with and hopefully edit on as well. Most iPhone and Android phones allow you to do things like crop and straighten photos or adjust the brightness and contrast. But you may want to download one of the free editing apps such as Google Snapseed or Adobe Photoshop Express. But don't worry too much about editing. The main thing is to get into the habit of spontaneously capturing pictures of anything that interests you as you go about your daily routine. So wherever you are right now, have a look around you. Look at the ceiling, look under your chair or table, look at the patterns and textures on the wall and the floor. What draws your eye? Are there any unusual angles or shadows or close-up details that you might not have noticed before? Are there any reflections that distort reality and make you look at things in a different way? Take a quick picture of anything that interests you. Take photos from lots of different viewpoints. Think in terms of shapes, tones, textures, patterns and colours. When you're out and about, walking to work or popping to the shops, you might notice something like a weathered billboard, a reflection in the shop window. I want to encourage you to take a moment to capture seemingly insignificant things that catch your eye. Get into the habit of looking up. Look at the architecture above your sightline on a city street, rooftops, chimneys and aerials, the spaces between buildings, unusual cloud formations. Notice what's under your feet, the cracks in the pavement, an interesting drain cover, twisted roots and animal tracks in the mud. Try seeing things from the perspective of an insect or a bird, as well as building up an interesting collection of images to spark your writing. You'll also be developing intentional or mindful seeing that's invaluable for any creative practice. It allows your mind to switch from thinking and doing mode to consciously noticing what's around you. It can also be useful to look back through old photos for inspiration. Pictures that you might have forgotten about or discarded can be the most interesting to write about. Blurred or accidental captures, people just out of the frame, all of these things are worth considering for your writing. This is a snap I took of the lamp above me in a cafe the other day. I was interested in the shape and how it would look as a black and white image taken out of context. So I edited it on my phone, zooming in, heightening the contrast, adjusting the exposure and rotating the image to look at it from different angles. I was then inspired to write my poem and add it in a text box to my image. So now that you've chosen and edited your photo, it's time to work on your short story or poem As I mentioned, the haiku form that you might remember from school is ideal for creating a snapshot in words to accompany your image. Because it's only 3 lines, it's a good way to make sure your writing is as succinct as possible and pared down to the bare bones without losing what you're trying to say. Traditionally, haiku poems were about nature, and each line had a set number of syllables. 5 syllables for the first line, 7 for the second, and 5 again for the last line. But don't worry if counting syllables isn't for you. Brainstorm words from the image. Just write down anything at all that comes to you. What does it remind you of? Do any memories or associations come to mind? It might be quite surprising what emerges. Here's a list of words I wrote when considering this photo I took of my son reflected in an empty shop window. Sticking to the haiku structure was challenging, but it forced me to be concise, rearranging and cutting some words and looking up synonyms to replace others. After I finished the poem, I realised it reflected my feelings about my son changing into a teenager. One inquiry question to ask yourself when writing from your image is, does my writing let me see the photo in a different way? Does it tell me something unexpected? Let the words give your viewers a new point of view on your image. If you get stuck, try writing down a list and description of everything you can see in your photo. Usually this can stimulate other associations and thoughts that take you beyond the surface of the image. If you do this regularly, you'll find that words flow easily, opening up your creativity and capturing a whole new dimension of your image. I hope you've been inspired to have a go at creating photo stories. If you do upload your photo stories to Instagram, do consider adding the hashtag Cultural Cwtsh. It would be wonderful to share and be inspired by each other's work.